The NFL season is less than 2 weeks away for the Carolina Panthers, and we are here today to just level set and talk through where we think the Carolina Panthers are right now. Let's go.
Brace yourself for the ultimate Carolina Panthers experience. Welcome to Two Growls, One Roar, the podcast that hits harder than a Luke Kuechly tackle. We're diving deep into the heart of Panther Nation, bringing you unrivaled passion, insider takes, and pure gridiron fire. From Wilmington to the cosmos, this is your home for the fiercest football talk east or west of Charlotte.
Welcome in, folks, to another edition of the Two Growls, One Roar podcast. We are steady, churning, and burning through as much content as we can to get you guys prepared, of course, making up for some time missed, respectfully so. But we're back. We're here. That's what we're going to do, and we will continue to be the best, which I hope, Carolina Panthers podcast that you guys listen to. That is the goal. With that said, folks, man, this is more of a free-for-all episode for me personally. A lot of times, which it's hard to believe I used to do this all the time, but what I like to do is sit down, put together content, and think through, hey, this is what I want to talk through. This is the outline. I do have some mailbag questions at the end of this episode, which we will discuss. But there was something burning on my mind as I sat back. I was just like, hold on. I just want to sit here for a second and think about the Carolina Panthers, because for me, when we look back at last season and the ups and downs, and I'm not going to hit on all the storylines because we're Carolina Panthers fans, and I think everyone knows every storyline that came through. We can just say Bryce Young, benching, coming back. Dave Canales, the decision to do that. Dave Canales is the head coach, finding his footing. Ejiro Evero, terrible defense, terrible run defense, most points allowed. We just continue to have those storylines. And so anyways, we get through this. Panthers look good down the stretch, or look competitive. They look like a football team. And they got us to buy in a little bit. At least they got me to buy in. I wasn't fully sold, but I was like, okay, Bryce Young's the guy. That's a big check. Dave Canales might be a pretty good coach. That's another good check. But we still have some gaps. We still have some holes. So let's see how this thing plays out. Now, we all wondered, was Ejiro Evero going to return? Was he going to be back? And he was, and he is, and he's going to be here. Hot seat or not seat, I don't know, but I do think his seat has to be pretty hot at the moment. I just don't think that Dave Canales is going to let this thing simmer. We go through this, then it's a question of who are you bringing back? Extending J.C. Horn, giving him a nice contract, because a lot of it's focused on the defensive side of the ball. You bring back Mike Jackson, you let almost the entire safety room go. You bring in Trayvon Merrick. You continue to add pieces on the defensive side of the ball. Bobby Brown, Patrick Jones, Turk Wharton, Christian Roseboom. But I don't think I was going to say I don't think you could plan for this, but the Carolina Panthers are close to this situation. They had to know the health status of Josie Jewell. And even with Josie Jewell here, I was one that wanted the Carolina Panthers to draft a middle linebacker or sign an additional one. I really wanted them to draft one. They chose not to do any of that, and they are now stuck with Trevin Wallace and Christian Roseboom with some guys behind them. There's possibility that Chris Barnes makes the cut, Jacoby Wyndham, Claude Charles, like this mixture of guys, Bam Martin Scott, undrafted free agent out of South Carolina. But a lot of holes, a lot of gaps. To a certain extent, because then we can talk about the free agent acquisitions, but you think about the draft acquisitions, bringing in Tedero McMillan, what he likely is going to do for this offense. We're excited about that. You bring in two edge rushers through the draft with Nick Scorton and Princely Umanmielen, and then, of course, Lathan Ransom, Jimmy Horn Jr., Mitchell Evans, bringing in pieces across this team to add depth. That was one of the bigger issues for the Carolina Panthers last season. When the injuries piled up, they ran out of depth, which, like, you can only go so deep. Second, third team, you carry 53 players. You have the 16 on the practice squad. You're eventually going to run out, and you can start pulling in players from other practice squads, it's just, a continuous shuffle in and out, almost like a hockey lineup, pushing guys through as quickly as you can. It's just the way where the Panthers were. So we see all that. And for me, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. When I saw the draft and the additions in free agency, I felt like I won the offense by itself. You think about the production that was there last year. Bryce Young just continues where he left off and gets even better. I think this is a team that can put up 25 points per game. Like easy. They put up 20 per game last year. That was 7 more points than the previous season. So I think going up another point or two or just maintaining, that's a good offense. And I think the additions they brought in again, Dowdle, I think Etienne's going to get in there. I already know about Hubbard, Tommy Trimble working his way back, same offensive line. So I mesh all those things together. I'm not worried about the offense. Where my main focus has been, continues to be, has been on the defensive side of the ball. Did they add enough? Do they have enough playmakers? Can they disrupt the quarterback? Can they get pressure? Can they get sacks? How does the secondary hold up? I mean, there's questions all across the board. It just continues. Can they stop the run? So going through the draft, free agency in reverse order there, going into OTAs, mandatory minicamp, rookie minicamp, training camp, in the preseason. I should say before the preseason. I was bought into who the Carolina Panthers are or were going to be. I said, yes, I am sold on the defense. I think it's going to be greatly improved, primarily because of Derek Brown and these new pieces. Then things set in. And this is just the nature, as someone that covers the Panthers now. I mean, this is what I do. I've been doing it for 2-3 years now. When I originally did not get this into the weeds, I honestly, so I think it's a two-edged sword. I could not care less about the preseason before I started doing this. I knew the preseason was a joke. I knew the preseason didn't matter. But now being so intertwined, and maybe it's just the consumption of football and us wanting to know who's who, what's what. Do we have something in this guy? Is this guy going to make it? What are we struggling with? What are we actually going to look like heading into week one? I think maybe we overconsume the preseason, and now we come out of that just worried. You got a lot of questions. You're like, wait, we didn't win. We didn't hardly put up any points. We gave up a lot of points. Is this really who this team is going to be? I do think, it's a small extent, not like all the way this is who we are. I think there's a sliver of who a team is in the preseason, because you think about your depth. That's something that's important to have. And just trying to build winning culture. Like, you think about these guys, and I know starters aren't playing that much, but you think about an NFL team trying to get out there. They want to win. They don't want to lose, especially these guys that are on the back end of the roster just trying to prove that they can make it to the NFL, prove that they deserve a contract, they should be on the roster. These guys are fighting. And you take those things together and you say, well, it would be nice for the Carolina Panthers to win. So for me, I don't know if I'm too invested, but there has been a little bit of a damper. And you can say, hey, CD, Eric, you're wrong, man. I'm gonna start calling myself Eric a little bit more for you guys, because that's my name, man. And with Dad being gone, like, what the heck? Who cares if you know my name, real name? So CD Eric doesn't matter to me. Anyways, little nugget there, off tangent. You may sit back and tell me I'm overreacting. I hope you do. I hope you pinch me and say, dude, just chill. But for me, a little bit, I am starting to, I think it'll come around, but going into week one against Jacksonville, I don't know that I'm personally sold on who this Carolina Panthers team is or can be. And it does worry me a little bit, because I kind of had this idea that maybe the Panthers are truly back in contention for the playoffs. I can tell you one of the things that cannot happen is a slow start. I know that they're floating at 6.5 wins on a lot of betting websites, close to, so you're talking about a 7-win team, hopefully more than 7 wins. But I just sit back and say, man, I hope this thing doesn't go poorly. I really don't, because last thing we need, I don't know, Canales isn't going to divert from his plan and Dan Morgan, and I don't think this would be the end of Dave Canales. But realistically, if things go off the rails early and you don't win in week 1, you don't win in week 2, the defense looks as bad as it's ever been, the questions will start pouring in, and naturally those things are going to eat you up. It will, because then you're trying to figure out, well, do we want to talk about relieving Evero of his duties? And again, folks, this is not me saying all these things are going to unfold. It's just my confidence level in Dave Canales, Carolina Panthers, and I mean, just everyone with the execution that we have seen, or lack of execution that we saw against Houston. I don't know. And we think about the motions to get prepared for these games, like, it's still practice, and you're technically coming off of a loss. You're preparing to go to play, and I know these starters are not in there the entire time, but you'd like to see them execute. Don't have drop passes. Make a block. Do the things that you're supposed to do. Execute on special teams. Execute on defense. Don't get destroyed. So I don't know, man. It maybe it is a little bit of me just kind of being too worried for no reason. I think as we get closer to week 1, I don't know. Maybe it's just being burned as a Panthers fan for the last however many years, 6 or 7, to where we try to have expectations. We try to come into a season prepared and thinking that this team's going to figure it out, or this team's got it, and we've turned a corner. And then you get in and you just face plant, and things are the same as they ever were, as the talking heads like to say, same as it ever was. That's the last place I want the Carolina Panthers to be in. I will tell you something too right now as we watch everything unfolding around us, and there's all the talk about Adam Thielen. I need to go see if that's a mailbag question. I don't know if it is. Maybe I'm already talking about it beforehand. I discussed the Adam Thielen situation in the previous episode, if you haven't seen it, giving sides and opinions for trading him and keeping him and where we sit. Now, do you think the Panthers should look to keep him? I do. Hold on to him. I don't think you should give him up. There's too big of a connection there with Bryce Young. So for me, I'm like, nah, let's just see how that thing plays out. But what I was going to tell you, as the Minnesota Vikings stack draft capital, number one, you think about the Carolina Panthers and their draft history with a day 3 pick being successful. It's not that great. Now, maybe last year's going to prove us, and this year, and we're starting to see a trend in the right direction, but recently, not the greatest. Bryce Young's class, and then one before that, not great. I was looking at Pro Football's draft listings, and it's just not good. It's not good. And I don't even want to talk about the potential for Chandler Zavala or DJ Johnson or both not to make it, because you're then talking about the 2023 draft class. It wasn't that long ago that we are now in year 3 of that draft class with only one player on the Carolina Panthers roster. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think you at least keep 2 out of 5, but still not great, which does kind of lend you to go back to the talk track of maybe it's important to stack all those draft picks, because the more draft picks you have, the more likely you are to hit on them. But let's get back on track with what I was trying to tell you guys. Sorry, this is part of me not being able to record in however long. So I now look around the landscape of the NFL. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles are busy. Good football teams are busy. They're active. Their front offices are not waiting. I am not sold and bought into all this BS. Like, this is the 3rd year of me doing this now. I know I get into it. I see it. And I'm like, this is overhyped. It is as overhyped as Black Friday shopping. It just is. Call me crazy. talking about waivers and claims and who are you going to pick up. It's not real, man. It's all fake. It really is. Like, I hate to be that guy, but it's just not what you think it is. All the good talent's already going to get scooped up via a trade. If the guy that you want is out there, you go and get him for a 6th or a 7th. You do it now before he hits it, because odds are he's not going to make it through waiver claims by the time that you need him. But we do this every year. Number one, you always have to remember every team is getting down to 53. Every team has a tough decision to make. For some reason or another, one of these guys is getting, if they're released, and they're a vested veteran, they're a free agent, but the guys that have less than that experience and hit waivers, there's likely a reason that they were let go. And so now you, as you constructed your 53, now have to figure out, okay, out of the guys that we kept, who do we not want? And so there's decisions to be made around that. But this is the time of year for the next 48, 72 hours. I don't know, whenever you're going to watch this, but whenever all this comes through, oh man, so-and-so, and it's already happening, but this player was cut. This player was waived. I can't wait for so-and-so to pick that player up. Okay, well, who are you giving up in exchange for him? We'll talk about these guys for the next 48, 72 hours, and that's it. I mean, you can go back and look on Panthers.com at their claim and waiver claims from last season, the year before. Now, some of those guys stuck around, like Claude and Cherilus, a few others, Bartholomew. Like, some of these guys have hung around fighting for spots. So, not to say that they're nothing and it's pointless or anything like that, but I just think, like, in general, not a big fan of everything that's on there. So anyways, as we head into week 1 of the season, we'll get you guys prepared, but we do have some mailbag questions. I want to make sure that I cover these for you. First one, and we don't have any fancy slides like this, so we'll just talk through them. It says, with the preseason over and roster cuts looming, perfect timing, what's the biggest surprise player who you think has earned a roster spot, and who is a notable player on the bubble who might get cut? So, surprise player who earned a spot. Again, it's hard to say surprise, because when you say surprise player, it's like who I think may be a surprise may not be a surprise to you. But as I look at the list, as we talk about borderline, I'll throw out 2 names, one on offense, one on defense. So I think Chris Barnes on the defensive side of the ball, inside the linebacker, maybe a small chance for him. I mean, I think we could probably say Corey Thornton or Bartholomew, but probably Corey Thornton. But I think he seems closer to being locked in than I would think with Chris Barnes. So I'll say Chris Barnes on defense. On the offensive side of the ball, I'm going to shock some people, and I'll say Bryson Tremaine. I think just his body of work, and again, I know it's a crowded room and a lot of decisions to be made, but there's a chance Bryson could leapfrog over David Moore as well as Jimmy Horn Jr. I'm not saying that he's going to, but I do think it's a possibility, and it's a story that we're going to be watching. Now, a surprise cut, possibly, I think on the offensive side of the ball, I would put, I mean, it's almost similar to what I just said. I'd put Jimmy Horn Jr. in the mix as a potential surprise cut. Possibly Chandler Zavala, if you think of that as surprise, or Yash Nijman on the offensive line. I think those are surprise. I don't see Raheem Blackshear being a surprise. I think he's going to get cut, and I don't think that's a surprise by any stretch of the imagination, just where we sit. On the defensive side of the ball, I think it's going to be your usual suspects. So I don't know if there's really surprises. We maybe throw out a Shy Tuttle. I'm looking through the list now. Shy Tuttle sticks out to me. DJ Johnson. I don't know that I'm Jaden Crumity, draft pick from last year. I don't know that I'm necessarily calling those surprises, but great question. Those are my thoughts on some of those. All right. Second one, it says rookie running back Trevor Etienne had a strong preseason finale. What does his performance mean for his role in the backfield? And could he challenge for a significant role in the run game early in the season? Great question. So, yes, fantastic performance. I was going back and watching some of that, like I said, because you guys know I missed most of it. So went back and watched that today. Yeah, really good performance by ETN. I do think, number one, he's a lock to make the roster, and I think he's the third back on the team. I think he'll be utilized in the return game, of course, but I do think they're going to have to figure out a way to get him in there. You think back to when the Panthers last year, when they were healthy for a very short time, were able to introduce Jonathan Brooks kind of as a rotation in like the third series or whatever they want to designate it. I think you can get ETN involved that way. He's a playmaker. It never hurts to have multiple running backs that are good and being able to spell a Chuba Hubbard or Rico Dowdle. So I do think there's going to be ways for the Carolina Panthers to utilize him and get him involved. Another good question. Third question says the Panthers recently extended right tackle Taylor Moton. With the offensive line now locked in, how confident should fans be in this group protecting Bryce Young and creating lanes for the running backs this season? It's good. We did talk about Taylor Moton. If you guys missed the last episode, we did talk about Taylor Moton and his contract and just where things sit. Good for him. The emotion that he had again in this the preseason. I always like to call it offseason, but it's a preseason now. Saying that he wanted to be here. And I think this is his final contract, probably here with the Carolina Panthers. I think it was good news, but at the same time, still a little concerned, really, with Damian Lewis, who I know should be good to go, knock on wood, for week one. I think a lot of the health and stability of this line is going to center around him. Austin Corbett as well, just like, can he make it through a full season? We will see. I feel confident with Cade Mays in the rotation behind both of those guys, to be honest. But the Panthers were still sniffing around for a tackle. So it makes me think that maybe this Taylor Moton deal's for really 2 years. In theory, they're going to be looking for someone soon, I would think. But as far as this year, I think if they maintain where they left off last year, I don't know that there's going to be a big improvement. But you can't give up 60-plus sacks. If you stay in that 30 to 40 range, probably on the lower end of 30s, that's good. And if you can continue to have the success, Chuba Hubbard breaking 1,000 would have easily probably got 12 or 1,300 if you played the full season, and you mix in Dowdle and ETN, I think you set yourself up for a pretty good year. And I think that's going to be one of the big focal points for how and why this team can be successful. Guys are killing it. Great questions. Fourth question of the day. We got one more after this. Said, what is the latest on the kicking competition between Ryan Fitzgerald and Matthew Wright? With no decision made after the final preseason game, what factors will ultimately determine who wins the job? So, yeah, the Carolina Panthers have this approach when it comes to roster cuts to wait until the day of. I mean, that's at least what we saw last year. They release everybody at once. A lot of teams like to do it in waves. Carolina Panthers just want to sit and wait. So that's what they'll do. So that's why a decision has not been made. But yes, it will have to be made. They're not going to carry two kickers. As far as the factors that will determine, I think it's going to be a body of work. And I'm not the one tracking stats through preseason and in camp to know who and how everyone was kicking. But I think Ryan Fitzgerald and Matthew Wright's going to come down to, you got to take into account extra points, field goals. And again, I think that's preseason games as well as what's happening in practice. And then their ability for the new kickoff rule, being able to land the ball in the landing zone the way that you want so you can get a return. I don't have a dog in the fight, and I don't know what's what and who's who between these. Originally thought Matthew Wright would win the job, but I do think it's a possibility that Fitzgerald gets it. Then again, Dave Canales may decide, you know what, we're going to roll with Matthew Wright. Maybe this time around, the Panthers have had a chance on some young kickers as of late, decided to pass on those. Maybe this is the year they roll with the younger guy in Fitzgerald. All right, folks, last question. With rookie Princely Umanmielen leaving the final preseason game with a shoulder injury, how concerning is his health for the depth in pass rush early in the season? So, yeah, sounds like he's going to be all right. So I'm not too concerned, but that does bring into play a very valid point. And if this depth goes out, Panthers are going to be in trouble because you're really relying on Pat Jones, DJ Wonnum, Princely, and Nick Scorton as your four. Then we're going to be talking about Thomas and Kuhn, DJ Johnson potentially as your next two behind them. Unless the Panthers, there's really not any good outside linebackers you're going to get off of waivers. So I don't think I'm concerned about Princely per se, but I am concerned about the pass rush in general. I actually just did an episode, I haven't posted it, talking about how I'm worried about the pass rush and what that's going to look like. So yeah, we'll see, but should be pretty good heading into week 1. Anyways, folks, that is going to do it for today's episode. This is Carolina Dad.